You've been praying, but you don't feel him. You've been worshiping, but you can't trace him. And you start to wonder, is God somewhere else? Is he too far from me to hear my cries? Somebody in here has been asking the same question Job asked. Oh, that I knew where I might find him. But can I tell you tonight, God is not lost. He's not missing. He's not hiding. Sometimes he conceals himself not because he's absent, but because he's working in the silence. He's nearer than the breath in your body, closer than the thoughts in your mind. So stop searching for him in a place when he's already dwelling in your space. He's not somewhere else. He's right where you are. God is not lost, we are. The truth is, we live in a world where it is easy to misplace ourselves and then assume God must have slipped away from us. But the reality is, he has been standing in the same place, unmovable, unshaken, unchangeable. It is we who drift, tossed back and forth by the storms of life, distracted by what glitters but never sustains. Think about it when you misplace your phone. The phone did not walk away from you. You simply put it down somewhere and forgot where you left it. The same is true with God. He didn't abandon you. He didn't run away. We simply allowed the noise of life to drown out his nearness, and suddenly it feels like he is gone. But he isn't. He is closer than your next breath. There are moments when we think, if God was with me, I wouldn't be going through this. But have you ever noticed that just because you don't see the sun on a cloudy day, doesn't mean it isn't shining. The clouds may block your view, but the sun is still in its place, radiating heat and light. Life's troubles are like clouds. They may hide the evidence of his presence, but they cannot remove him. And yet, in those moments, we say, God, where are you? The real question is, where are we? Are we still anchored in faith, or have we wandered into fear? Are we standing in his promises? Have we drifted into doubt? Imagine a parent walking with a child in a busy shopping mall. The parent holds the child's hand. The moment the child lets go to chase a shiny toy, suddenly the child is lost in the crowd. The parent didn't move away, the child did. That's how life works with God. He has your hand, but if you let go and start chasing distractions, you may lose sight of him. Thank God he never loses sight of you. Even when you wander, his eyes are fixed on you, waiting for you to reach back out. Too many of us believe distance equals absence. We think, if I don't feel him, he must not be here. But God is not measured by feelings. He is measured by faith. When a radio station broadcasts, the signal is always there. But if your radio is not tuned correctly, you won't hear the music. God has not stopped broadcasting his presence, but our hearts sometimes tune to the wrong frequency. Tuned into stress, tuned into anxiety, tuned into heartbreak, and we wonder why we can't hear him. The problem is not the signal, the problem is the receiver. Adjust your dial, shift your focus. Tune your heart back to his word. Sometimes we drift not out of rebellion, but out of awareness. Life beats us down. We start to slowly slide away without noticing it, like a boat on a lake with no anchor. You don't feel the drift right away, but little by little, the current takes you far from shore. That's how some of us ended up in places we swore we'd never be. Not because God abandoned us, because we didn't stay anchored in his presence. And yet, even in the middle of the sea, he sees you. Even when you've drifted far, his love stretches farther than your distance. Think of the prodigal son. He thought his father's house was too small, his rules too restrictive, his blessings too common. So he left. But notice his father never moved. The house was still there. The table was still set. The father's heart was still waiting. The boy had to come to himself and realize, I am the one who left. I am the one who drifted. I am the one who got lost. That's what happens to us. We think God is gone, but he's still at the house, still at the place of promise, still waiting for us to come back home. And this is why we must stop blaming God for our own wandering. When we pray and don't feel him, it doesn't mean he's far. It means we have to realign our spirit. When we worship but don't get the goosebumps we're used to, it doesn't mean he's absent. It means he wants us to mature and trust his word, not our feelings. When we ask for answers but hear silence, it doesn't mean he has abandoned us. It means he trusts us enough to walk by faith. If you look back at your life, you will see patterns. Times when you thought God was gone, but later you realized he was closer than ever. Times when you thought you were abandoned, you now see he was carrying you through, like the footprints in the sand. You thought he left you in your weakest moment. The truth is those were his prints carrying you. That's the reality of our God. He is not the one who gets lost. We are the ones who lose our way. Yet he never stops searching, never stops reaching, never stops waiting for us to find our way back. That's why you must not mistake your wandering for his absence. Don't confuse your distance for his disappearance. Your feelings write a false story about his faithfulness. He is unmovable. He is constant. He is steady. While we shift, he stays. While we wander, he waits. While we doubt, he remains faithful. The God who promised never to leave you, never to forsake you, has not gone anywhere. If you can't find him, don't assume he moved. Look at your own steps, retrace your own path, and you will discover he has been there all along, waiting for you to come back into alignment with his presence. Silence is not absence. One of the greatest lies the enemy whispers in our ears is that if God is not speaking loudly, can't hear him thundering in our situation, then surely he must have walked away. But can I tell you something? God does his deepest work in silence. Some of the most powerful things in your life are formed without noise. A seed buried in the soil does not make a sound, yet it pushes roots deep into the ground and prepares to break forth into life. You don't hear the heartbeat of a baby in the womb without special instruments, yet it beats faithfully in the quiet darkness until the day of birth. Silence is not absence, it is preparation. We are conditioned to equate sound with activity. If it's noisy, then something must be happening. If it's quiet, then nothing is taking place. God is not bound by that. Think of the night sky silent, vast, and still. Yet in that silence, stars are being born, galaxies are colliding, entire worlds are being held in place by his word. The silence of the heavens is not inactivity, it is majesty. So when you enter a season of silence, don't mistake it for abandonment. It may be the very stage where God is rearranging the unseen for your breakthrough. Daily life reminds us of this truth. Teacher gives a test, the classroom grows silent. The teacher is not absent, they are watching. The silence doesn't mean you're forgotten. It means you're being evaluated, stretched, and trusted to apply what you have already been taught. Some of you are in a testing season and you are panicking because you cannot hear God's voice like before. But hear me, the teacher is always most silent during the test because the silence is the opportunity for you to prove what you've learned. Another example, when you put bread in the oven, you close the door and wait. You don't hear the yeast rising, you don't hear the transformation, but when the timer dings, the bread has risen. God works the same way. You may feel like he closed the oven door on you, left you in the heat, and walked away. But while you are in there, he is baking strength into your spirit, rising faith into your heart, and preparing you to be presented. Silence doesn't mean he left. It means he is letting the process complete itself. Some of the most life-changing moments happen in silence. Think about a hospital room where a surgeon is operating. The room is quiet, the instruments precise, no unnecessary noise is allowed. It feels tense, but that silence is the atmosphere of healing. The surgeon doesn't announce every move he makes. He simply works carefully and intentionally, and when it's over, the patient wakes up changed. That is how God operates. While you are anxious for noise, he is carefully cutting away what doesn't belong, stitching up what was broken, and orchestrating your recovery in silence. Even nature testifies to this. Winter is quiet, trees look dead, the ground seems barren, and nothing looks alive. But beneath the surface, life is preparing. Roots are going deeper, nutrients are being stored, and when spring arrives, what was silent bursts forth with color. Just because you are in a winter season doesn't mean God is gone. He is using the quiet to prepare you for a season of blossoming. What you think is emptiness is actually incubation. We live in a world where we crave constant stimulation, constant affirmation, constant sound. If our phone doesn't buzz, we think we've been forgotten. If we don't see likes or hear validation, we think we don't matter. and we project that mindset onto God, we expect him to always be loud, always be obvious, always be dramatic. But he often whispers, or sometimes he says nothing at all, because his silence forces us to trust his presence, not our perception. It forces us to walk by faith and not by sight. Think of the story of Jesus on the boat with his disciples. The storm raged, the waves crashed, and he was asleep, panicked because he wasn't saying anything, wasn't doing anything they could see. But just because he was silent didn't mean he was absent. His very presence in the boat was proof they would not sink. Somebody needs to realize this. God's silence does not equal your destruction. His silence means he trusts you to endure the storm until the appointed moment when he speaks and calms it. Sometimes his silence is the greatest sign of his confidence in you. A parent does not need to tell their child how to ride a bike once the child has learned to balance. They let go of the seat, step back, and go quiet because the child has the ability to ride. If God has gone silent in your life, it may not mean he abandoned you. It may mean he trusts you to ride with the strength and wisdom he already placed in you. Even in the story of the cross, we see this. As Jesus hung there, he cried out, my God, why have you forsaken me?" The heavens were silent. No angels came. No voice thundered. No miracle swept him down from the cross. Yet in that silence, the greatest work of redemption was being accomplished. Salvation was being purchased. The silence of God did not mean absence. It meant fulfillment. So the next time you find yourself in a season where the heavens feel quiet, don't panic. Don't assume he left. Don't believe the lie that silence equals absence. Instead, understand that silence is strategy. Silence is surgery. Silence is strength being built. Silence is trust being tested. And silence is the space where God prepares to reveal the fullness of his glory in your life. His location is not in a place, but in presence. Too often we confine God to buildings, to sanctuaries, to pews and pulpits, as if his power is trapped within four walls. We say, I can't wait to get to church on Sunday to meet God. But can I tell you, doesn't clock in on Sunday morning and clock out Sunday night. His presence is not limited to a geographical address. He is not waiting for you in a cathedral while ignoring you in your kitchen. He is not only holy in the temple, but distant in your trouble. God is not about places. He is about presence. Think about this. When Jacob laid his head on a rock in the middle of the wilderness, he had a dream of a ladder reaching into heaven, and he woke up saying, surely the Lord is in this place, and I knew it not. The wilderness wasn't holy. The rock wasn't holy. The dirt wasn't holy. What made it holy was the presence of God. That means wherever you are, whatever desert you're standing in, whatever lonely road you're traveling, his presence can make it holy ground. Daily life teaches us this lesson again and again. A hospital room is not a sanctuary, yet how many people have testified that in their darkest moment, lying on that bed, they felt the nearness of God stronger than ever. A prison cell is not a church, yet countless inmates will tell you that when they cried out in desperation, God filled that tiny cell with his peace. It isn't about where you are, it's about who is with you. His location is not tied to geography. His presence fills every atmosphere. Have you ever sat in your car after receiving bad news and suddenly felt peace wash over you? Wasn't coincidence. That was presence. Have you ever walked through grief, sat in a quiet room with tears falling, somehow sensed strength wrapping around you like an invisible blanket? That wasn't imagination. That was presence. We keep thinking we need to find a certain location to access him, but the truth is he promised, lo, I am with you always, even unto the end of the world. That means whether you're in a palace or in a pit, his presence is constant. We limit God when we think he is only found in religious environments. The woman at the well in Samaria argued with Jesus about whether the true place of worship was the mountain or Jerusalem. And Jesus said, the hour is coming, and now is when the true worshipers will worship the Father in spirit and in truth. He was teaching her that it is not about the mountain or the city. It is about the presence of God meeting the spirit of man. You don't need stained glass windows to encounter him. You need an open heart. Think of technology. You don't see Wi-Fi, but it's present everywhere. It's not tied to one corner of your house. As long as your device is connected, you can access it. God's presence is even greater. His signal never weakens, never drops, never goes out of range. The problem isn't his presence. The problem is our connection. When you pray, when you worship, when you acknowledge him, it's like connecting your device. Suddenly what was invisible becomes accessible. Parents know this truth in a unique way. A child may play in another room, and though they can't see their mother or father, the presence of that parent is still in the house. The child feels safe because they know mom is here or dad is near. That's how God works. You may not see him in every moment, but just knowing his presence is near gives you the courage to keep going. His presence is the assurance of safety even when you cannot see his face. Even in moments of despair, his presence becomes your lifeline. Remember Daniel in the lion's den. There was no altar, no choir, no preacher, yet God's presence filled that den and shut the mouths of lions. Remember the 3 Hebrew boys in the fiery furnace. There was no temple in that fire, no congregation, but there was presence. Presence turned a furnace into a testimony. When you understand that his presence is not tied to place, you stop waiting for Sunday to experience him and realize Monday morning in the office, Wednesday afternoon in traffic, Friday night in your bedroom, he is there. We have to shift our mentality. Stop searching for God in specific coordinates. He doesn't dwell in man-made temples. He inhabits the praises of his people. That means when you open your mouth in gratitude at your kitchen sink, King of Glory sits down right there in your house. When you whisper a prayer under your breath at work, his presence fills that cubicle. When you sing in the shower or cry in your car, he is enthroned in the midst of it. It is not about being in the right place. It is about carrying the right presence. That's why the Ark of the Covenant was powerful in Israel. Because wherever it went, God's presence was there. David danced before the ark because he understood it wasn't about the tent. It was about the presence inside the tent. You carry that same presence through the Spirit of God living in you. You are the temple now, which means his location is not in brick and mortar. It is in your heart, in your walk, in your breath, in your life. So don't wait to step into a sanctuary to believe you can experience him. Don't think that a specific place holds the monopoly on his glory. He is the God of presence, not the God of location. When you wake up in the morning, his presence is with you. When you go to bed at night, his presence is covering you. When you're in trouble, his presence surrounds you. When you're in joy, his presence celebrates with you. You are never out of reach, never too far, never too distant, because he does not limit himself to a place. His presence is with you, and his presence is enough. God moves when you shift perspective. Many times, the miracle is not in God doing something new, but in us seeing something differently. We keep waiting for God to change the situation, but God is waiting for us to change how we see the situation. Perspective is everything. 2 people can look at the same storm. One sees destruction, the other sees cleansing. 2 people can face the same desert. One sees emptiness, the other sees preparation. The way you look at it determines how you live through it. God doesn't always move your mountain. Sometimes he moves your mindset. Because if you see it right, you will walk in victory even while standing in the same valley. Think about a camera lens. When the focus is off, the picture is blurry. The subject might be right in front of you, but you can't see it clearly until you adjust the lens. Nothing about the subject changed. It was always there. What changed was the focus. That's how life is with God. His promises have always been there. His presence has always been near. His love has always been covering you. But until you shift your perspective, you'll look at blessings and call them burdens. You'll see opportunities and call them obstacles. You'll look at delays and call them denials. The lens of perspective determines the clarity of your faith. Daily life shows us this over and over. Consider a glass of water half full or half empty. It's the same glass, the same water, the same level. The only difference is perspective. One person sees lack, another sees provision. One person complains, another gives thanks. That's why the Bible says, "And everything give thanks." Gratitude shifts perspective. When you start thanking God for what you still have instead of obsessing over what you lost, you unlock peace, you unlock joy, you unlock hope. Gratitude doesn't change the glass, it changes your gaze. Another example is parent teaching a child how to ride a bike. The child cries, "I can't do it, I'm gonna fall." The parent says, "No, you're not falling. You're learning balance. The fall wasn't failure, it was training." That's perspective. God is the same way. You cry about the fall, but he's saying, this is not the end, it's preparation. The bruise is not a sign of weakness, it's proof you're growing. When you shift perspective, you realize what you thought was punishment was actually progress. Think of the Israelites in the wilderness. They saw giants in the land and said, "We are grasshoppers in their sight." But Caleb and Joshua looked at the same land and said, "We are well able to take it." Same land, same giants, different perspective. One perspective led to fear and retreat. The other perspective led to faith and victory. God didn't change the giants. He used perspective to expose the hearts of the people. When you see yourself as God sees you, you stop calling yourself a grasshopper and start walking like a giant slayer. Even in everyday struggles, perspective changes everything. When you're stuck in traffic, you can see it as wasted time. You can see it as protected time, time you weren't meant to be in the wrong place at the wrong moment. When a job opportunity closes, you can call it rejection, or you can see it as divine redirection. When someone walks out of your life, you can call it abandonment. You can see it as God's way of making space for who really belongs. Perspective transforms pain into purpose, setbacks into setups, losses into lessons. Think about how eagles handle storms. While other birds run for cover, eagles spread their wings and let the wind lift them higher. The storm is the same for all birds, but the eagle has a different perspective. It sees the storm not as an enemy, but as an elevator. That's how God wants you to see the challenges you face. Stop running from the storm and start rising in it. The storm that was meant to break you will actually bless you when you shift perspective. Even in the New Testament, Jesus constantly challenged perspective. When the disciples worried about feeding the multitude, they said, "We only have 5 loaves and 2 fish." Their perspective was lack. Jesus looked at the same loaves and fish and said, "Bring them to me." His perspective was abundance. He blessed it, broke it, and multiplied it. The miracle didn't start with more food. It started with a new perspective. Sometimes the blessing you are praying for is already in your hands. You can't see it until you shift how you look at it. Another powerful example, the cross. To the crowd, it looked like defeat. To the disciples, it looked like tragedy. But from heaven's perspective, it was victory, it was redemption, it was salvation being birthed. The same cross that looked like the end was actually the beginning. That's the power of perspective. It reveals that what man calls finished, God calls fulfilled. We often say we want God to move, but sometimes the first move is not in heaven, it's in us. The moment we choose to see differently, the atmosphere shifts. When you stop asking, "Why me?" and start asking, "What is this teaching me?" growth begins. When you stop saying, "This is killing me," and start saying, "This is building me," strength rises. When you stop focusing on what you can't control and start focusing on the one who controls everything, peace enters. God moves when you shift perspective because your faith unlocks his power. So the next time you feel stuck, don't just pray for God to change your situation. Pray for him to change your sight. Ask him to open your eyes like he did for Elish's servant, who thought they were surrounded by enemies until his eyes were open to see the hills filled with horses and chariots of fire. The enemy didn't disappear, but the perspective did. What you see determines how you stand. What you focus on determines how you fight. When your perspective shifts to align with God's truth, you will realize he has been moving all along, waiting for you to see it. There comes a moment in every message where truth stops being words on a page and starts being a fire in your bones. And this is that moment. You came into this thinking maybe God was far away, maybe he was silent, maybe he had abandoned you, maybe he had gone somewhere else. Let me tell you with everything inside of me, he has not moved, he has not left, he has not forsaken. The God who hung the stars still knows your name. The God who sculpted mountains still numbers your tears. The God who painted sunsets still walks right into the middle of your storm. You may not feel him. You may not see him, but you are breathing proof that his presence has never left. Sometimes life will try to convince you that God is out of reach. Trouble will shout, pain will scream, storms will roar. But faith is not built on feelings. Faith is built on knowing. And I came to tell somebody that God is not hiding in another galaxy. He's not trapped in a sanctuary. He's not bound to a Sunday morning service. He is Emmanuel, God with us, right here, right now, right in your brokenness, right in your questions, right in your midnight hour. Challenge you to love enough and care enough. You don't have to climb a mountain to find him. You don't have to chase him down the street. All you have to do is whisper his name and the atmosphere shifts. Think about it. When you thought you wouldn't make it, somehow you did. When you thought you collapsed, somehow you stood. When you thought it was the end, somehow you found strength to take another step. That wasn't luck. That wasn't chance. That was God. That was presence. That was proof that even in the silence, even in the shadows, even in the setbacks, you were never alone. The footprints you thought were missing were the moments he carried you. The tears you thought nobody noticed were bottled in his hands. The prayers you thought bounced off the ceiling were being answered in ways you couldn't see. And here is the truth you must carry with you. God moves when you shift perspective, saying, I'm defeated, and start saying, I'm developing. Stop saying, I'm crushed, and start saying, I'm being created. Stop saying, this storm is going to drown me, and start saying, this storm is going to lift me. What you call the end calls the beginning. What you call broken, God calls breakthrough. What you call empty, God calls enough. You are not standing in the middle of destruction. You are standing in the middle of destiny. So lift up your head, square your shoulders, declare to yourself, I am not abandoned. I am not forsaken. I am not alone. Say it until your soul believes it. Say it until hell gets nervous. Say it until heaven responds. Because the same God who was with Daniel in the den, the same God who was with the 3 Hebrew boys in the fire, the same God who was with Paul in the prison, the same God who was with Jesus in the tomb, that same God is with you. And if he brought them out, he will bring you out. If he stood with them, he will stand with you. This is your moment to stop looking for God in the distance and start realizing he is dwelling in your nearness. He is not somewhere else. He is right here, right now. And if God before you, who can be against you? If God is with you, what can stand against you? No weapon formed against you shall prosper. No storm can take you under. No fire can burn you down. The enemy's greatest lie is that you are by yourself. But the truth is greater than the lie. God is in the boat with you. God is in the valley with you. God is in the silence with you. God is in the fight with you. So walk out of here knowing this: you are never alone. You are surrounded by his presence. You are covered by his power. You are strengthened by his spirit. When the enemy tries to convince you that God is gone, lift your hands and declare, I will not fear. For the Lord my God is with me wherever I go. That is not just motivation. That is revelation. That is not just encouragement. That is truth. Truth will set you free.